Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and this is a scrapbook with me where I use a repeating shape to make a layout. First of all, I wanted to frame my work, and so I used a white background, and I used the Dandelion ink, I believe, to add to the background. Oh, apologies, it's Cantaloupe. So it's the Momento Cantaloupe ink, and I use that in the background to just do a rough pattern that I could overlay my photo on. Next, I took my orange ink, my orange Memento ink in Tangelo, and I used that to ink around my white piece of paper, and this piece of paper is 11.5 by 11.5. I went all the way around with that, and then after that I wanted to use some of the Tangelo to add to the background as well. So I used my glass mat and some water and the ink and mixed those together. And honestly, I just have a cheap brush from the dollar store that I use to just flick paint onto my background. And you'll notice that I actually take the brush and tap it onto my finger. I find that a little bit easier to get the effect that I wanted. And just added a bit more ink so that I could get a bit more of a saturated color. Once I'm all done that, I just use a rag to wipe away any excess ink. And now I'm going to take this frame in from the Butterscotch paper pack, and I'm just inking around the edge with the Tangelo. I actually had gutted out the frame, and you can see I was a little off in my measurements, but it's just sitting in the background, so it actually won't show. So I just go around and ink all the way around. And next I'm going to place it onto my mat, and I use repositionable tape to go on the back of my white piece of paper and get that into place. So I try to use my matte background because I find with my eyes it's just easier to line everything up. Takes a few tries here to get it in place, but eventually I do get it in place where I am happy with the placement. So I'm trying to do about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Okay, so as I mentioned, I was using the Butterscotch paper pack. So I used a white frame around my photo, and then I used the Bloomy Medallion punch to punch out assorted florals that I could place all over the layout in a repeating pattern. I actually placed them all randomly rather than all in a row. I wanted it to kind of look scattered and whimsical. So here you'll just see me making arrangements and deciding where to spread all of these colors. So I did some medium yellow, really light yellow. There's a few pieces that are actually white with a very light yellow pattern, and a few of the dark color that is in my frame. And once I kind of decide where I thought all of these would look good, then I will start to adhere them, and I want to make sure that they're actually tucked under the photo rather than on top of the photo. So I think I'm pretty happy with this placement, and this is when I bring in my repositionable tape runner to just lift them up and start placing them down. You'll see that I'm being kind of rough with where I place them. I did use some repo tape to temporarily place down my photo so that I knew where it would be sitting as I got all of these florals down. And I want them to be a little bit 3D-ish, so I'm not being too careful about any folds or anything, and making sure that they have a little bit of a lift to them. And so just lifting each of them, getting them down. Sometimes I put the glue on the back of the flowers. Sometimes I put it on the back of the actual backing. I used my pencil to mark kind of where I had my photo so I know where to put it back. And now I'm using my Creative Memories foam squares on the back because I want to raise this photo up above my background. And you will watch me. It's actually kind of off camera, but I'm struggling to get all the little white, all the little wax squares off of the back of the foam squares. And I know you can use a pointy tool. I ended up putting the photo up just a little bit higher, realizing that I would want to add a greeting to this. So I went into my supplies and I had these Thickers Sentiments in gold. And I decided to use the word beauty to place at the bottom of the layout. And these are kind of okay. I do find if they flex a little bit, it really shows because of the gold. So you'll see me later, I actually kind of play around to try to flatten out the wrinkles in the gold. And because I did raise up my photo, I need to now raise up this wording so that it sits at the same level. So I used my 3L foam strips. They're just these teeny strips, and they worked perfect to place in behind the letters to raise them up. However, the word beauty is very sticky and the strips are sticky, so it was a bit of a struggle. I actually finished everything off camera. So I got that all in place, and now I'm using my Distress Spritz and Fossilized Amber to drop some gold throughout so that it kind of matches the title. So I find it easier to just take the actual cap right off and flick with the straw, and then you'll see I'm just mopping up a bit. And then I used my Nuvo dots in mustard gold, and I'm going to add in a bunch of dots throughout so that gold and kind of yellowish hue carries on throughout. Find it easy if you squeeze actually a pretty decent amount and then just kind of twirl it as you lift it, and it really helps to kind of give that enamel dot look. So don't be afraid to actually squeeze a little more than you expected. So now I just kind of look back and realize I want a few more dots. And once I'm happy with that, I've just add the date and just a very, very small little note at the bottom of the layout. And I always like to take just one last look to make sure everything looks good and I'm happy with it. So that's my video. Thank you for joining me on this adventure.